Audio Reviews Audio Media Part 175, The Unbreakable Boy. This is the new Zachary Levi movie that came out in February that I watched, so you don't have to. Basically, it tells the true story of a family with an autistic son who has osteogenesis imperfecta, and it's told from his point of view, even though the story is fundamentally about his parents, primarily his dad. It also takes a very sharp Christian turn with some weird messages about forgiving abuse in the third act. That's neither here nor there. The film basically feels like if Wonder, Counting by Sevens, and Soul Surfer had a collective baby, and the first big stereotype issue is using the young autistic character who doesn't understand the depth of the issues in his life to narrate a very heavy story to make it feel narratively lighter, and then claiming that the story is about him when it isn't. It also heavily leans into the my disabled child is a burden territory several times over. They didn't really say anything super bad or super ableist, but the editing and sound design and facial expressions and overall tone filled in those gaps pretty clearly until the third act, when suddenly they're inspired by him and want to be like him, because disabled kids only matter when they're teaching you something about what it means to be human, otherwise they're annoying and actively in the way. Also, the sequence where after he tries to strangle his brother, they physically drag him to a psych ward and sedate him while there's a comforting, calm indie song playing over top of it was quite the experience. But the most interesting narrative choice has to be the fact that they didn't portray him as autistic at all until around age 4 or so, when the parents realize he might be autistic, and then all of a sudden he's hyperverbal, he's lining up his toys, he's counting repetitively, he's ignoring his parents, and randomly stating oddly specific observations, which was an interesting choice. On the positive side, I liked seeing a very social and outgoing and a talkative autistic person in media for once. We don't see that very often. It was also kind of cool to see a disabled parent, since the mother also has OI. You don't get to see that very often in media either. And some of the editing at the beginning was cool and interesting and cute, but then that style never reappeared once throughout the entire film, so it felt really random and totally inconsistent with the rest of it. And also those things don't outweigh the serious narrative issues with the movie overall. It's definitely another case of just because it's a true story does not mean that it's being told in a healthy, helpful, or otherwise productive way, which I always find both very interesting and mildly infuriating.